Welcome to our webinar on Illinois WorkNet's WIOA Workforce Investment and Opportunity Act approved training programs overview. We're going to be talking about how to use Illinois WorkNet to research high-demand training options. So hopefully you pick up a couple of tips about how to use the tool and how to move forward with the WIOA approved training programs. So the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act has replaced the Workforce Investment Act. It is the new program. So everything that was going on before is still pretty much going on, but they've just changed the name. So the programs that we're going to be talking about have all been approved by local workforce innovation boards. And those are the ones that are the same as the WIA boards that we had just last year. Programs that qualify for WIOA-funded training are included in this program and in the training provider program tool. And all of these training programs lead to high-demand occupations. Now, just a little bit, because everything varies depending on the actual local workforce area that you are in. But who can apply depends upon a couple of factors. There is an income eligibility factor, and that's defined by the local workforce area. So if you live in Chicago, it might be different than if you live in Peoria, or if you live in Decatur, or if you live in Carbondale. So you have to check with your local workforce area about those income eligibility guidelines. You can also apply if you have a barrier to employment eligibility. And those things are defined, again, locally, but the two basic ones that come into play here are basic skills deficiencies. So if you have a lack of math, reading, or writing skills, those are considered basic skills. And also if you are an English language learner, so that means that if English is not your primary language, you might be able to qualify for some WIOA training dollars. Also, if you are a dislocated worker, that means that you may have been laid off from a job that you have. So that gives you a possibility of eligibility. So you might want to check with your local workforce area to find out. And if you need to find out about your local workforce area, where your offices are, you can click on the link that is in the presentation here, but we'll also put this link into the chat pod right now, and that is how you can find where your local office is. When I put that in, I just noticed there's a question about WIOA funds still available in DuPage. I don't know the answer to that. We do this on a statewide level, so you would have to check with your local DuPage office. In fact, all of you would need to check with your local offices, and you can find out where those local offices are by going to that link that I just put into the chat pod. Now, a couple of requirements that are required by law is you have to be authorized to work in the United States. If you are a male, you need to be compliant with your military selective service requirements. The additional requirements that may include your proof of your age and proof of your address. Age depends on what program funnel you might be put into, whether it's youth or adult. And then the address is so that the local workforce area can verify whether or not you are within their boundaries or someone else's boundaries. And you may have to show proof of all of these items. Now, that's all we're going to do. That's all we're going to talk about eligibility, because there are specific parameters that need to be met, and each of the local workforce areas will be able to define those for you. So we're going to move on with the tool itself. So we're going to talk about using the search tool. And as we go forward here, you can find the WIOA training provider program tool by going to the Training and Credentials tab. Let me pull out my arrow here to the Training and Credentials tab, and then click on the first item in the menu, which is the WIOA approved training programs. Then as you click on that link, you will be taken to this page, and you will see the WIOA approved training programs. We have a PowerPoint presentation or a SlideShare presentation here. And once you go there, then you can start your search by going to the Start Your Search, and this is what we're going to talk about right now is each of the parameters here. And once you get some results, you see this was just a general search that came up. We have 5,488 programs in the state that are WIOA training approved. You'll see a list. You can scroll the list of programs, and then if there is a box like these green ones right here, you can see participant results. So let's go into the actual training programs search. Let me check on this question here. If someone used WIA funds for training, are new funds available through WIOA? Typically, it depends on how long ago you got funds for WIA, but you do need to check with your local workforce area because each local workforce area has different definitions of how they give participants training dollars. So please check with your local workforce area. Again, that link is in the chat pod, and it was on the one slide in our presentation a couple of slides ago. So please take a look there and check with your local workforce area. Now, the training program search tool that we are going to start with is the first item on the drop-down list for the type of search that you want to do. So you would select training programs, and then you can select either search or browse. So you need to pick which one you want to do with that. Next, you can, but you don't have to, pick a local workforce development area. Now, what would happen here is if you happen to live on the boundary, you might be able to work in one area or another, and sometimes, depending on the local workforce area, and you have to check with them, you would need to, if you're a dislocated worker, sometimes it depends on where your employer was. So all of the parameters are different based on the local workforce development area, so please check with them. You can also enter a keyword to search by training program. So if you want to look for graphic, you can search for a program using that keyword on your search. You can also enter a job, family, or related occupation. So you can select from a list, I believe there's about 20 of them. Once you pick that item from the first list here on the left, these items right here, then the next box will pop open and become available where it says select a job family to view on occupations. And as you can see here, I picked arts, design, entertainment, sports, and media occupations. I received 11 specific occupations, and so I can pick one of those or multiple of those to get the specific programs related to those specific items. You can also then enter your zip code or your city. And if you don't know what your zip code is, you can click the little lookup button to see what your actual zip code is. And then the next item that you can do is pick how far you're willing to drive. That's what this all boils down to, is are you willing to only drive 10 miles? Or maybe you only have public transportation that you can get to within 10 miles, or are you willing to drive 50 miles or 200 miles? Then you want to find out how many results you want on a page. So as you are looking at the list, keep it long or keep it short. You can also print it, so that might have a determination of what you have show up on the page. You can also sort in alphabetical order by what the training costs are, the training time, what your goal would be, what's the highest enrollment that you might see, and or the highest average wage. So if you're really looking for a high demand job and you want to make sure that you're getting training in that very high demand job, then you can sort that way. If you're more interested in the training itself or what the cost is or how long it takes you to complete the training, you can sort the programs that way. Next, we have a couple of items that are along the bottom menu bar. If you do search, you can pick the parameters that you selected and hit search. You can reset, which will clear everything, and you can start over. From your results, you can pick 3 of the programs that you can contrast and compare side by side. And then if you need to define a term, you can get it from the glossary. And there is a link to the glossary. It takes you to that link so that you can see what's going on there. Once you get your results back, you will see the program name with the basic information of cost, time, what kind of a goal there is. Then you would see, if you click on the name itself, you would see the program details, which will show you a map location, and it will show you all of the different detailed parameters for that program. And last but not least, for the program, you can check to see how many people have completed the program and what their success rate is. So if you are looking, you can find out how good of a program, or even if somebody has completed the program previously. Okay, next we have when you pick your 3 programs, you will see the little blue highlight here that shows you that you have selected that program. If you want to add a a program to your list of items to compare, all you have to do is click on the blue little box that says Add to Compare List. If you no longer want a program in your list to compare, you can remove it by clicking on the brownish box. Once you have the programs in the compare, you will have the ability to see the 3 programs side by side, compare the information that's included in that, including a map location that will show up. And let's go on to the next slide. Now this is just an overview of what I did with a particular search result. So with the training programs, I need to grab my arrow down. With the training programs, I selected training programs. I picked search. I picked a local workforce development area. I entered a keyword. I picked a specific occupation. I entered a zip code. I selected within 25 miles. I wanted to see 25 results per page. I wanted it sorted in alphabetical order. Then I got my list of programs. I can click on a name to review the program information. I see the basic cost information and the time. Then I can add it to a list to compare. It is located on the map, and I can see who has completed the program, if anyone. So that's an overview of the training program section. Before we move on to the training provider one, let's see if we have any questions that I can answer for you. We had a guest ask, is the state budget being affected by this? Thanks. And I do not know the answer to that specifically. You would have to check with your local workforce area. Andrea said, since the state has decided to freeze all program and department disbursements until the state budget has been approved, WIOA funds have been frozen as well, even though it is a federally funded program. I don't know if that is a question or a statement. So, Andrea, I'm sorry, I can't answer that. And then we have a question that says, does previous enrollment in VRAP affect my eligibility for this? I don't know what VRAP stands for, so I do need a definition for that. What are the age restrictions for this WIOA? It will depend upon your local workforce area. In most cases, you do need to be 18 and out of school. Now, that's just a general parameter, but again, you do need to check with your local workforce area. And then BHA asks, should a person take an assessment test before searching? We do have the skills and interests survey. So if you take those skills and interest surveys, it can help you determine what kind of a training program you may want to pursue. Also, if you use the Employment 101 tool that we have on Illinois WorkNet, it will help you go all the way through the process, including the selection of the actual training program that you would want to pursue based on your skills and interests. And thank you, Scarlett, for adding the skills and interest link to the chat pod. And then we have a question. How does one pick a job family sector? It is based on the list and what you may have found in your skills and interests. That's where you will pick that job family sector. And WIOA helps with career counseling at all of the Illinois WorkNet centers. So if you use the locations search that we entered in the chat pod earlier, you can find a local office that will have a career counselor available for you. All right, let's move on with the training provider search part. And we are going to show you that the training provider is the next item on the list. And once you pick the training providers, the search parameters do change a little bit. We have still the local workforce development area, keywords, city or zip code search, and the page sizes. So once you have selected the training provider, you will get a list of the local educational institutions that are within the city or zip code parameters that you entered. When you click on the educational institution name, you will get a list of the programs that are available for that institution, and then you will see the list of completers who have completed those programs. Demand occupations. It is the last item in your search options, and it gives you the parameters that include keywords, SOC code, page size, region, career cluster, and pathway. So let's move on to the next slide here. An SOC code is the code that is associated with the actual work occupation. Then the region, you can pick what part of the state you are in, because the demand occupations vary between the different parts of the state. The career clusters are the same across the state, and these will give you the basic jobs that are associated with these different career clusters. And then the pathway, depending on whether it is green, there are different green, new, and emerging jobs that come out based on the actual career cluster. So as we are moving through on to the next slide, once you find a program that comes up based on the code or the region or the cluster that you selected, these items will show up, and then if you pick one of them, it will take you to the actual description of that occupation so that you can take a look at all of the details that are associated with the actual career. All right, now let's go to a recap, and then we'll answer any other questions that we have. We have several ways to use our WIOA training program search tool. You can search or browse by training program. You can use a keyword. You can search by job family and related occupations, or you can search with local information. If you want to search or browse by training provider, you can use the local information parameters as well. Then if you search or browse by demand occupation, you can use a keyword. You can search by SOC code, career cluster, and pathway, or you can search by region. When you are done with that, we welcome you to come back to Illinois WorkNet webinars whenever you have the availability to join us. If not, you can search for our recordings on Illinois WorkNet. Let's take you to a closing poll and then check out our last set of questions that we have from our audience. I know that we had a question about being able to download the handouts. We will include links to the handouts in the news item that will come out tomorrow. If you click on the item, it will give you the option to download the file. If you download the file, it does open up to a new browser window, so make sure that you check the next window that you might have. All right, so we have a question from Trish that says, do you happen to know which occupation is strong for female workers over 55 years of age? Trish, it's really going to depend on your skills and interest. Once you take those skills and interest surveys, that will help you determine something that is good for you. Then it will give you possible occupational matches. Then you can go and take a look at the demand occupations and go through that process to find something that will really match you. Julie asked, what do you access the SOC code? I'm wondering if you meant where do you access the SOC code? If you look at the career wages and trends, there will be an SOC code on each of the occupations. So hopefully, Julie, that answered your question. I'm still not sure I understand the purpose of and how to select an SOC code. And you don't really need to use the SOC code. You can just use the area, the career area, instead of using an SOC code. It's just if you have that number, you can use that specifically. And I believe that answered the next question from Mirage. And Then we have guest 3 also asked, is there a freeze on WIOA funds? You will need to check with your local workforce offices, and we have that. Let's add that link back into the chat pod right now so that you can go and check there. I am 49 years old, so I'm not too old to start over, as I have been a PA for doors. Okay, that's great. Check out the training programs and see how that helps you. And the SOC code process has nothing to do with Social Security. Next. Great guest. Check about the CNA program. Okay, and personal assistant. Great. Do you know if WIOAs are providing direct training for potential clients at any housing authorities in the state? No, I do not know the answer to that. You would need to check with your local workforce areas to see if something like that is applicable. All right, so thank you very much for your attendance today. Sorry about the glitch in the middle. We will get that cleaned up before we start to upload it for the recordings. Have a great rest of your day, and we hope you succeed in searching and gaining new training to help you along your career path. Have a great rest of your day.